This isn't even worth a hell of human beings.
Bubsy 3D. One of the worst things ever spawned onto this world, or at the very least it's in the top 3. I have not been shy about my fears of this pile of fecal matter. It's one of the most infamous games of all time, and quite frankly, I don't think it's infamous enough. This game should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity, but even Satan has an origin story, so what about this? Well, despite the first game being a modest hit, both the sequel and the Jaguar title, which I'm fine with skipping since I don't have a Jaguar, were commercial failures. So Accolade asked the original creator of the series, the late Michael Berlin, to once again be the director. However, instead of developing it themselves, it was mostly made by Eidan. Berlin set out to not make this game a rehash of the earlier titles, and instead pushed the series forward by making one of the first ever 3D platformers. Development began in April of 1995 with a team of around 8 people. For the art direction, they took inspiration from classic Looney Tunes cartoons, and even got legendary animator Chuck Jones to help out. No idea how they pulled those strings. Of course, since this was their first time working with 3D technology, they weren't entirely sure how to use it properly. I smell a fuse being lit. Berlin attended the Consumer Electronics Show in January of 1996 to demonstrate the game, but while there, he saw a demo of Super Mario 64, and quickly realized they were in trouble since, well, it was better in literally every conceivable way. But since Accolade had already settled on a deadline for the game, they couldn't really do much to fix it. Oh, that fuse is getting shorter. Bubsy 3D was spawned onto this realm on November 25th, 1996 for the PlayStation, and things have been going way downhill ever since. I mean, think about it. Would these horrible things have happened if it wasn't for this game? Yes, they would have, but this certainly didn't help. Reception was weirdly mixed upon its release. Some critics actually enjoyed the game because I assume they were being paid off, while others were not blind to the garbage in front of them. Still didn't stop Accolade from using these out-of-context lines for the box art. As time would go on, though, more and more people would be horrified to learn about this game, and it became universally considered one of the absolute worst video games ever made, which is still too much praise. As you can imagine, the game sold absolutely horribly. I mean, coming out the same year as Super Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot certainly didn't help, let alone the fact that this game was complete vomit. It flopped so hard that both Accolade and Eidan would end up being purchased by other companies. Bubsy lay dead in the ground where it belonged, and even Michael Berlin himself stated that Bubsy 3D was his biggest failure. Even he admitted this game sucked.
I probably made it clear by now, but Bubsy is my most personal hated video game franchise of all time. I hated the first game, really didn't like the second one, and while I've never played this, I have literally never heard a single remotely positive thing about it. Ever since I learned about it, it is haunted by everlasting nightmares, and I swore I would never play it. But of course, all vows are meant to be broken. I mean, just ask the Catholic Church. Those guys should not be drinking coffee. Oh, wait, that's Mormons. Whatever. This game clearly won't leave me alone, so the only way to get rid of it is to conquer it, which is something I don't think anyone has ever done before. Normally, when people talk about this game, they quit after level 2 at most, even though they should have quit after immediately seeing the game, but whatever. Someone has to show this game what for, and it looks like that someone's gonna be me. I'm not happy about it, but it's time we dive into the everlasting horror that is Bubsy 3D. You know what, actually, I just remembered there's a new river that opened up nearby me. Let's go check that out instead. Fishing. The most fun you can possibly have while doing absolutely nothing. Paint drying club's got nothing on this. I got a bite! Huh? Well, it was worth a try. Let's go.
The game opens with one of the most obnoxious starting cutscenes I have ever seen. This thing literally goes on for a solid 3 minutes, and it's miserable. It looks hideous, the voice acting is bad, and the writing is abysmal. But what does it actually say? Well, the game is a continuation of Bubsy 1, where the Woolies tried to steal Earth's yarn and failed. Because of this, they abducted Bubsy so that their only threat would be forever neutralized, allowing them to invade Earth. But unfortunately, the spaceship crashed and Bubsy escaped. Now he's running around the planet in an attempt to build a rocket so we can go home, and the Woolies are trying to kill him. Yeah, the story's pretty bad. It's not awful on paper, but the Woolies don't feel like an actual threat, and Bubsy is somehow even more annoying than he was in the previous games. But who really cares? This is the least of the game's flaws. God, even the title screen is awful. Bubsy just looks so smug standing there, and an annoying music loop is playing in the background. The model of him looks bad, and the backdrop is one of the most generic things I've ever seen. But after that, we can finally boot up the game and select the first level. God, why?
Now, I am a person who doesn't really care too much about a game's graphics. Obviously, they can't help the experience, but if they're underwhelming, it doesn't ruin it for me, and if they're great, it can't save an otherwise bad experience. So I try to be as lenient as possible when it comes to this sort of thing, especially when the game is fairly old. Now with that said, look at this. Just look at this. How did anyone think that this was possibly okay?
I know it's been beaten to death at this point, but I am still genuinely baffled that this is the game that got released. It seriously looks unfinished. I mean, just to compare, Super Mario 64 released the same year and it looked like this. Hell, Crash Bandicoot released the same year on the same console and it looked like this. Hell, Star Fox released 2 years prior on the freaking Super Nintendo and it looked better than this game. This, I mean, just what the hell happened here? The models are awful, the colors are gross, and the environments have no textures to them whatsoever. This game is just a never-ending mismatch of random shapes and colors. Why does it look like this? Well, after doing some research, I found out there is an actual reason, and it's not just because they didn't feel like it. Apparently, the designers of the game wanted to have the best-looking thing they could get on the PlayStation, and by that, I mean they wanted it to have a higher resolution than any other game on the console. Because it can only process so much at once, they had to sacrifice more detail in exchange for clearer visuals. I can kinda understand the idea, but they clearly made the wrong choice. The resolution itself isn't actually that good, and even if it was, it wouldn't matter because everything looks like it was made in an afternoon in Unreal Engine. I think I can say with confidence that Bubsy 3D is the worst looking game I have ever played. And the music isn't much better. It ranges from some of the blandest orchestral music you've ever heard to some extremely annoying songs, which mainly come from the percussion that plays whenever you're near an enemy. It sounds like someone farting through a trumpet that was mashed up with a meat club. It happens constantly throughout the entire game, it's awful, and I hate it. Needless to say, this game's not winning any awards for the presentation, and that was one of the few redeeming qualities of the 2D Bubsy games.
And if you think the gameplay will be able to salvage the experience, I really wish I could join you in that blissful fantasy you are currently in because of some unlawful substances.
As you'd expect, it's a 3D platformer. The best way to describe it is Crash Bandicoot structure with Mario 64 level design, much like how the 2D games were like Mario's platforming mixed with Sonic's speed. You're in these large, sprawling levels, and your goal is to simply reach the end of the stage. Sounds pretty simple, but there are so many things that just make this game agonizing to play, with the most infamous one being the controls. Bubsy doesn't control like Mario and Crash, where you just push in the direction to go in. Instead, the game uses tank controls, where you can only move directly in front of you. To turn, you have to stop moving and push the D-pad to rotate the camera around you. You can slightly change the direction while you're moving, but it's insanely stiff and not reliable in any sense of the word. Needless to say, these controls do not work with this game's level design. Much like the other games, it will constantly throw enemies at you, and it expects you to react to these things instantly. But weirdly, the control becomes a bit better when you're jumping. For whatever reason, when you jump in the air, you can suddenly move around in any direction you want. So the most reliable method of getting around tight areas, especially ones with a bunch of enemies, is to just jump over and over again while wiggling around with the D-pad. This isn't 100% reliable, but it works much better than just running everywhere. The only part of the controls that's actually helpful is grabbing ledges, which happens every time without fail, even if you don't want to. Making things even worse is the game's god-awful camera. You have no control over this thing. It stays locked behind Bubsy at all times, but when you're jumping, it angles itself downwards so you can see where you're gonna land. This is actually kinda helpful, but it wouldn't be needed if you could just control the camera freely, since the game's depth perception is horrible. A lot of the time, it's really hard to tell how close or far away you are from a platformer enemy, and sometimes you can't even see what you need to do to get through a section because the camera won't show it to you. But easily the worst thing about the camera is whenever you get hit, it spins around to face directly in front of you and then resets itself. This is insanely stupid since you can't move while this is happening, and it's really disorienting, so a lot of the time it just leads to you getting hit again.
Most people say this game should have learned from Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot since they did come out before this. However, let's be a little fair here. All three of these games were being developed at roughly the same time, so they couldn't actually go back and fix what issues it had to make it more like those other games without completely starting the game over from scratch, and like I said, Accolade had them on a really strict deadline, so they couldn't really do that. But you want to know what game was out at the time that this game could have, and likely did take inspiration from? Jumping Flash.
One of the earliest games released for the PS1 and one of the earliest examples of a 3D platformer. Not only did this game look better than Bubsy 3D, but it had a better understanding of what it was capable of. This game also uses tank controls, and you can't freely control the camera, but unlike Bubsy, it feels like it was designed with this control scheme in mind. The levels are much smaller, you have a ranged attack so enemies can't swarm you as easily, and the camera doesn't spin around every time you get hit. So it's a game that's actually fun to play despite its age. Bubsy, on the other hand, feels like it was designed with a completely different control scheme in mind, and because of that, many believe it should have given you full 3D movement like Mario or have a fixed camera like Crash. And both of those things would have been much better, since what we actually got here does not work at all. The level design itself certainly doesn't help. These levels are way bigger and broader than they need to be, and a lot of them are either filled with nothing or have a concerningly large amount of enemies that come flying at you from all over the place. There's only one clear path to reach the end, and as Bubsy points out to you, there are arrows that point you in the right direction, but they don't help very much. These levels are trying to have some sort of theme to them, but because there's barely any textures, everything looks exactly the same. Half the time, I can't even tell what I'm supposed to be looking at. It's extremely easy to get lost and wind up going in circles because there's no rhyme or reason to these areas. At least when Mario games have floating platforms, they're clearly made of wood or stone or something, but here, that's just a block. And don't even get me started on the enemies themselves. Most of the bullies just sit still and spit at you, but there's also some that fly. There's these target things, which I don't even know what they're supposed to be, these really annoying birds. They wouldn't be so hard to deal with if these controls weren't so abysmal. It's ridiculously easy to just barely overshoot or undershoot a jump, which causes you to take a hit, and that stupid camera spinning I mentioned earlier makes it likely you'll take another one. But nothing compares to these stupid snake things. They move insanely fast, they're nearly impossible to see, and you literally cannot jump on them. It doesn't work.
The enemies in this game are so aggravating, it feels like you were tied up in a chair while someone's spinning you around and beating the shit out of you. You know what? I can't take this anymore. Screw playing video games. I'm gonna become a painter instead. Welcome to the Wonders of Art. Today, I'm going to teach you how to paint a nice ocean landscape. We're just gonna grab some nice blue right here, and then absolutely cover the canvas in it. Make sure you add some nice ripple effects at the top, and remember, you can never use too much blue when it comes to the water. Now we're gonna let it dry for a minute before we add on the second layer, and then we can...
You only have 3 hit points and a limited amount of lives. If you run out, you have to start the whole level all over again. Bubsy has 2 main ways of defending himself, with the first being the jumping, which like I said is not very reliable, but the second comes from these atoms. These are your typical collectible, the replacement for the yarn balls and marbles. When you collect 50, you get a hit point back, and when you get 100, you get an extra life. But if you hold down the square button and run into the atom, you can then shoot it to kill enemies and destroy walls. Sounds like a neat idea, but it's not helpful for multiple reasons. 1, you can only aim left or right, not up and down. 2, it takes ages to aim, and you are not invincible the second you fire it. 3, if you miss, the atom comes flying back at you, which can cause damage. And 4, you only have a few seconds to shoot it or else you get hurt. So yeah, these things aren't that good. You do have some power-ups, but they aren't great. This lightning thing makes you invincible for 20 seconds, this cluster lets you shoot 10 atoms, and this outline makes you invisible for 20 seconds. This means enemies won't see you, but you still take damage if you run into them. Great. Like the first game, if you kill an enemy, it stays dead until you get a game over, which is still nice, but with how annoying enemies are to kill in this game and the fact that some are unkillable without a power-up, you're usually better off just running past everything. For other powers, Bubsy can still glide if you hit the triangle button, only you can't do it while jumping or falling, you have to press it while on the ground, and the circle button lets you duck, which I kept forgetting was in the game.
So far, this game has just been checking all the boxes. We've got bad story, controls, gameplay, graphics, music, level design, enemy placement. Is there any way we can make this even more insufferable? Oh, you bet your sweet ass there is!
If Bubsy wasn't already one of the worst video game characters ever, it sure as hell was cemented here. He makes a bunch of quips as you do various things in the game, whether that be jumping on enemies, finding power-ups, or even taking a hit. And in the beginning of the game, they are insistent because it serves as a tutorial, which just drags on.
Woohoo! Now, if you lose a Bubsy, you'll start over here instead of at the beginning of the level. Ain't life grand?
Yeah, I figured out this is a checkpoint, and if not, I would have learned it myself when I died. These jokes and one-liners are painfully unfunny, and they happen so many times throughout the entire game. You're already in a bad mood because the levels are trying to f*** you over, and then here comes this little shit trying to be funny, and it is aggravating because he almost never shuts up! Not to mention the voice acting is just plain awful. In the first 2 Bubsy games, he was voiced by legendary actor Rob Paulsen, but here he's voiced by Lani Minella, who's done a bunch of other video games, most notably Rouge and Sonic Adventure 2. So she is a good voice actress, but the direction they gave her, combined with the god-awful writing, just makes Bubsy the most annoying video game character ever. Will you please just shut the f*** up? And I have absolutely no shame in critiquing this, because even Lani Minella herself said this voice was irritating and one of her least favorite roles she's ever had. I'm telling you, even the voice actors hate this bobcat bitch. Nobody likes your jokes, so shut your damn mouth! To add insult to injury, the pause screen has a pun. This game is clearly trying to be funny, but it genuinely makes it worse, and not just with the quips. They have this little visual gag where Bubsy waves goodbye before falling into water. Yeah, sure, cute, but this actively affects the gameplay because if you slightly walk off the platform that's above water, you have no way to save yourself. It's instant death. And that's very easy to do because of how slippery the control is. This game is just a bunch of cheap shit. The jumping has no momentum to it, so it's really easy to miss jumps, especially on moving platforms. The enemies are f***ing everywhere, and because you can't move the camera, you get hit by stuff off screen. The hit detection for jumping on them is super unfair, and if all that wasn't bad enough, they can still hurt you after you kill them, either from their shots or because you both take damage for some reason. And of course, they can shoot you from really far away, and you can't even see them, so that just comes out of nowhere.
I'm actually getting pretty hungry. I think I should go make some lunch. Today, I think I'm gonna make some fresh pasta and veggies.
First, you're gonna want to set a pot of water on the stove.
Make sure it's not too full, and then wait for it to boil. Now select a pasta of your choice. I'm personally gonna be going with some tortellini, and place it in the pot. While that cooks, grab yourself some frozen peas, put that in a bowl with warm water, and then place it in the microwave. Make sure you stir the pasta as it boils, and once it's ready, you're gonna want to grab some butter. Oh, come on! I don't even get to eat it! F*** you!
Alright, let's actually get through these levels. Like before, they all have stupid names, but now with the addition of these weird title cards. The first one is Claws for Alarm, which looks like it's supposed to be a mountain area. This level introduces you to the game's mechanics, like jumping, shooting atoms, and hitting these switches to activate things. The levels also have these rockets in them that you can find to build a rocket ship, but thankfully they are not required to beat the game, so why would I get these? Level 2, Claustrophobic. Ugh. Not too different from the last level, aside from adding these propellers you glide on, and they hurt you if you touch the blades. Catatomic Catastrophe. I swear these names are gonna give me a f***ing aneurysm if the game itself doesn't. The first real platforming level with a bunch of water, and you learn very easily how annoying this stuff is. Woolly Bully is the first boss level. The scientist is in a UFO shooting at you, and you need to glide on the explosion to hit him, which just makes perfect sense, wouldn't you agree? Missing Links is the first underwater level. You push X to go up, circle to go down, and triangle to dash forward, but doing so costs air. You have to grab these canisters to get more. Honestly, these levels are so open and spacious, they're actually really easy since you can just make a beeline for the exit and be done in no time, which makes them my favorite levels in the game, though the enemies are still really annoying. Dome Sweet Dome is trying to be a factory, so it has conveyor belts you have to jump on, and it's when the levels really start to get frustrating, and annoyingly long too. Das Bobcat is another water level, and I beat it in 2 minutes. Domicidal Maniac, another factory level where the layout is so windy and ridiculous I have no idea where I'm going. Crimson Hide, another water level, which is somehow even shorter than the last one. I told you these were the best levels in the game. Dome Home, back to the factory. They clearly didn't have many ideas. It's just a bunch of platforming in different rooms, and the whole thing is complete bullshit.
Ugh, this is stupid. Why am I doing this to myself? Oh, right. It's a shame, because there's so much better stuff I could be doing with my time, like, I could go shopping. Check out your local mall. There's so much to see. GameStop, you can find games that are actually playable or sell them for $2. The Lego Store, where you can spend 4 months of salary in 1 day. Spencer's Gifts, you can buy South Park plushies and a mug I can't show. Build-A-Bear, you can create life to something that isn't actually a bear. Hot Topic, you can tell your parents it's not just a vase and oh, son of a
Mortal Bobcat is another boss fight against this woolly mammoth. Oh, I get it. Yeah, that's really fucking clever, you stupid game. He runs at you and trips, so you have to jump on him. This causes a banana peel to show up, and you have to make him slip on it, so he slams into the wall. Do this 3 times, and he dies. Hey, at least this game has a couple unique boss fights, which is more than I can say for the first 2. Zot's Nice. What does that even mean? And is this supposed to be a city? I honestly can't tell. You walk down these windy roads while these will shoot at you from every possible angle. Days of Thunder. They didn't even try to make this look like something. You hop in these rockets that carry you, and these signs cause them to disappear, so you better jump out before that. This level is way too long, especially since if you fall, it takes eons to get back up. Woolyville Horror. Okay, now we're getting into the really horrible levels. It's another street level where you need to ride on these bugs across water. It's stupidly twisty, the platforming sucks, and the enemies are f***ing everywhere. This level goes on for an eternity, and there's not a single shred of joy found anywhere inside it. I was on this level for 50 goddamn minutes. Runaway Woolly is another rocket flying level with a bunch of branching paths, but there's only one correct route, and if you don't do it correctly, you're just gonna spend ages going around in circles, dying over and over and over again. Duh!
Well, I've had to go run. Yeet! Dang it!
But now, we reach the worst level in the entire game. Bright lights, big woolies. The entire level is covered in water, so instant death can happen at literally any moment. There's a bunch of bug riding, platforming, and enemy killing. You have to hit these switches to make these 3 platforms move to continue onward, and whatever you do, don't hit these 2 checkpoints, since if you die, it makes getting back to the colored platforms much harder. Especially this one, since you have to jump over the switch while on the bug. After that, you can move forward, but these stupid enemies are everywhere, and you can't always kill them because they're so far away, and the controls are shit, and the platforming sucks, and I hate it, and if you got a game over, you have to start this whole damn thing all over again, and the son of a bitch never shuts up, and I spent a hour on this miserable pile of shit,
and I am absolutely losing my mind because this whole day is just complete garbage, and I hate this shit.
to make everything in this game complete dog shit. Every single aspect of it fucking sucks. It controls like ass. The level design is shit. The enemies are complete bitches. The mechanics barely function. Why the fuck did anyone think this was a good idea? This is the worst piece of media I've ever had the displeasure of consuming, and I pray for the second it all ends because it has brought me to the absolute fucking breaking point! But hey, we only have 2 levels left, and surprise, they are fucking miserable. Escape from Wool A is another rocket level, which is somehow even worse than the last one. There are so many rockets, and most of them lead you in circles or to pointless extra paths. I seriously had no idea what I was supposed to do here. I had to look it up and find out that you take this extra path, which I didn't even see. God, this game is shit.
I hope you know what you're doing.
No, I don't know what I'm doing, and neither did the developers. Oh god, the final level. Please just make the suffering end. The final stretch has you run down a hallway full of invincible turrets, because why make actual level design when you can just throw in a bunch of guns and call it a day? Then you have a boss fight against this giant 2-headed woolly, and it is actually pretty easy. Avoid this energy that causes to fall, jump on these platforms, and then hit it 3 times. But of course, that's not the end. Next is this tiny area filled to the brim with turrets that, spoiler alert, you can just walk around. S-tier level design right here, guys. But then you have to run and hit these switches while these little shits chase you, and they are completely invincible! Yeah, thanks, assholes. You have to hit these switches in the correct order. Green, blue, red, yellow, and as far as I can tell, the game says fuck all about that, so thank you, Internet. Then we can finally fight the Woolly Queens, Polly and Esther. Those names are still stupid. Wait, why are they separated? I thought they shared a body.
Oh, right, it's Bubsy. Who gives a fuck about the continuity?
This fight sucks. They teleport around the stage shooting lasers at you, and they move so fucking fast it's nearly impossible to avoid getting hit, and sometimes it literally is inescapable. You need to hit the switch to make 4 atoms appear, run into them, and then fire it at the queens. Hit them 3 times each, and they die. Aiming these things is really annoying, so just go for the atom in the opposite direction of whichever way you're facing, and whatever you do, do not stop jumping, since staying still for even a second will cause you to take a hit. The only positive thing I can say about this fight is that if you kill one of the queens and then die, they stay dead unless you get a game over. But that doesn't mean this fight isn't still complete shit. After you finally kill these alien bitches, we get one last rocket part and another really annoying dragged out cutscene. Long story short, Bubsy was captured again, but escaped in the rocket he built. But he didn't have enough parts to get back to Earth and wound up stranded in space, so now the aliens are completely free to invade Earth, and that's it. The game just ends. There's no credits.
There, that's it! I'm done! Fuck you! What? No, please! Why isn't this working? I swear I beat the game! Why can't I conquer it? I mean, I did everything! It's not like there's... No. Oh no, God, no, please, no, don't tell me, please, no, there can't be!
Turns out those rockets do serve a purpose. There's 2 of them hidden in each level except for the boss stages, and you have to collect them all in order to get the best ending, which means, yes, I had to play through this entire game 2 separate times. If the main game wasn't already horrible enough, trying to grab these things is fucking miserable. Some of them aren't that hard to find, you just need to take a different path, but most are hidden in absurdly stupid places. Some require you to complete an entire obstacle course, and many of them require you to shoot an atom at a wall so that it breaks, revealing a new area. And these walls look exactly the same as any other one, so you gotta take a wild guess as to which ones hide areas and which ones have jack shit. And not all hidden walls have rockets, so you can end up just wasting your goddamn time. The only indicator of where the rockets are these telescopes that point you towards one, but they don't say anything about how you're supposed to get to them. Playing this game standard is already one of the worst things I've ever done in my life, but going after these somehow makes it even fucking worse! worse! These stupid things are hidden in some of the most cryptic horseshit places you can possibly imagine, and some of them are nearly impossible to figure out without the internet! Thank you so much, random speedrunner. And if you exit a stage or get a game over, you don't get the rocket pieces, so I'm gonna make this a little easier on myself by using a cheat code that gives you 99 lives. Yes, I am, and I'm okay with that, because fuck you, you son of a bitch game. But you can also tinker with the options and... wait, what?!
I could turn off Bubsy's voice this whole fucking time?!
Well, that plus the cheat codes make this a bit better, but even with those things, collecting these rockets is an utter shitload of an experience. I hated every single waking minute I played this game the first time around, so having to go through it a second time while hunting down these horrible collectibles made me want to die. But I can't. I can't do anything. I'm stuck here. I can't escape. I can't stop playing. I can't be spared by the sweet release of death. I'm trapped here until I get all the way through this asswipe of a video game. I just want the pain to end. I want my suffering to be over, but it won't stop, because I have to aimlessly run around gathering all of these stupid rocket pieces which are miserable to go for. I know there's a cheat code that gives me all of them instantly, but I can't do that, because the game won't let me. But after going through all 18 levels of hell, what do you get? What is your reward for going through this fucking torture? What happens after you go out of your way to 100% complete one of the worst pieces of media ever created by humans? An ending cutscene that's nearly identical to the last one, but the only difference is instead of Bubsy getting stranded on another planet, he finished the rocket, which instead blasted him back in time, meaning the Woolies can still invade Earth, meaning all of that pain was for nothing.
life. Literally every single thing about this game is horrible! The graphics, the music, the voice acting, the character, the gameplay, the controls, the level design, the enemies, the boss fights, every single thing about this game sucks! There is not a single shred of enjoyability found anywhere in this miserable pile of shit, and I vow to never touch this horrible excuse for a game ever again! No, I conquered you! Your essence is in the Mega Tool! We are done here! What's going on? What the fuck? What the? Oh no you don't! I'm done living in fear! You may be a horrible game, but I managed to take you out. I did everything, and now it's time to destroy you once and for all. You may have evil running through every single molecule in your body, but this is America, and we have something even stronger than that. Guns! Well, that takes care of that, but we're not done here. I'm going to end this. It's time I destroy this thing, once and for all. the deed is done. I firmly believe that Bubsy 3D is the worst video game ever made. I mean, sure, there's some games that are more glitchy or have barely any content to them, but there is genuinely not a single shred of fun that can be found anywhere in here. I mean, even some of the worst games ever made, like E.T., Big Rigs, or Superman 64, can be funny bad. This game is honestly just depressing. I've known about this game for around 8 years, and despite never actually playing it myself, I knew just how horrible it was, and after going through the entire thing, not once, but twice, I can now say it fully deserves its reputation as one of, if not the worst video game ever. There is no reason for anyone to play it. And now, it's gone. I've destroyed it, and it will never hurt anyone ever again. Well, we've officially failed as a species. So long, everybody!